Hello. Today I'm taking a look at the KZ CRA, or actually CCA CRA, basically the same brand. Same deal as last time. I was sent this earphone. Uh, no, it was free of charge from KZ, with the promise that I'd give my thoughts on it. Um, no affiliated links or anything like that. But anyways, so this is one of the newer releases from the CCA brand, which is a sub-brand of KZ. Typically, CCA has a slightly different tone to their earphones, but it's usually not very consistently different. Um, but this one seems to be a little bit interesting. It's received quite a lot of hype around the forums, I guess, as a sort of cheaper alternative to the CRN, which is the KZ variant of their of critical tuning, I guess. The Zex Pro CRN, whatever. Uh, that one aims to provide a slightly more Harman style, critical style tuning. Uh, that's not exactly what this is, in my opinion, but it has its own merits as well. So the gist of this is that this is a single dynamic driver CCA shell, and it fits very well in the ear. It's a smaller shell than the CRN, and as a result, it does feel a little bit better for me. However, there is very little, if any, isolation. Um, the overall construction is a simple molded plastic design. You have your shell here, you have a plastic nozzle, unlike the separate piece brass or metal nozzle on the CRN. It's all one body. And then on the other side, you have a plastic faceplate with with a small sheet metal cover, just press fit onto here. Note that I have had this thing fall off of me once before, and Casey was prompt to send me a replacement. Um, so, yeah, that's about it for the build. It's a clean design, in my opinion. It's very sleek, very low profile relative to the CRN or the larger KZ designs, and overall a very clean aesthetic. Um, Not much to it. The cable that it comes with is the same as the CRN almost, just with a copper color to it. Very simple cable, very durable, very well, hopefully very durable. Generally very minimalistic in its design. No thin braided wires or anything like that. It seems to be a sturdy design with a good amount of strain relief to the cable. And then, of course, 3.5 millimeter termination and KZ's 2.5 millimeter, or no, I'm sorry, not 2.5, 1.75, sorry, millimeter termination, or actually, it's not 1.75, 0.75 millimeter termination. Um, and it has a recessed connector here for the protruding connector there. Same as all modern KZ cables, basically. So this is technically a proprietary design, but whatever. It can be swapped out for whatever you want, I guess, as long as it'll fit. Um, and yeah, I think that's about it for the design. Very simple. Oh, and it does not come with Starline tips, fortunately. So that's a plus. These are actually the tips that I swapped onto my CRN were actually from these, so I do prefer this style. But now onto the sound. So this is in my opinion, basically a small refinement onto the typical KZ formula. So you still have big treble and boomy bass, but it's a little bit refined. They do advertise very good treble extension up to high frequencies, which is more or less true. It's a fairly, in my opinion, it's a little bit uneven. However, yes, it does extend quite well to upper treble to 20 kilohertz. Um, I was able to hear to the end of my hearing range, which is around 18 to 19 kilohertz. So, yeah, very few issues there. Um, the It is a little bit of a sharp response. And I think that elevation, especially around the 10K region, or above and below the 10K region, will be a point of contention for some. Same as all of the KZ, it is elevated around that area. If you enjoy a lot of air, a lot of presence in that region, um, then, or sparkle, I guess, then I don't think it should be a problem. But for people who are sensitive to sharp treble, uh, even though this isn't the most egregious treble response from KZ, it is still a bit on the edgier side, so to speak. And so as a result, please be aware of that. It definitely does have a lot more upper treble than, or maybe not a lot, but it does definitely have more upper treble than the CRN. It no, I don't think there's much contention there. Um, but moving below the treble region, so the treble is, it's a little bit contentious, but personally, I found it to be quite nice. It adds, it adds a little bit of fun, a little bit of sparkle. Same thing as the other KZ models, and I personally don't mind a little bit of that sharp treble. Now, moving a little bit further down the range, I find that the mid-range response is actually a little bit more refined than typical KZ. So moving between, let's say, that 3 kilohertz, 4 kilohertz pinna region, all the way down to that more or less 500 hertz region, it seems to be just a little bit more refined than the typical KZ standard, a little bit less thin. Uh, you know, pinna is reduced a little bit, and that bloat from that typical KZ bass rise is also reduced slightly. And it forms a reasonably even response. It is not neutral per se, but it is quite nice. Uh, Not the most well-rounded, but it's not as thin as the rest of the KZ line. And by the rest of the KZ line, I mean ZSN, ZSX, or EDX, ZS10 Pro. That whole line of dynamic driver KZs that sound the same with like maybe a BA or two thrown in. So it's a little bit of refinement on that model, and so I do quite like that. It seems that they finally embraced, or bothered to at least, better damp the response on the mid-range. So that is a plus in my opinion. And then down to the bass response, it's not egregious. There is an elevation. It is noticeable. And I think it has a bit more body than the CRN and the other than the CRN. Not as bloomy or as big as the rest of the KZ line per se. It does match a couple others, but overall, yeah, it's not too bad. So I think that aside from the bass response, I think it works quite well. Overall, this is definitely a funner tuning, but it doesn't go over the top with super thin mid-range or super egregious treble like some other earphones. However, just like with the CRN, it does have a couple of caveats of typical KZ. It does have that sharp treble response, even more so this time around. It does have a little bit of a bass limit. Overall, it's a V-shaped response. When you buy KZ, that's kind of what you're asking for essentially. That's what they do, and that's what this is, but just a little bit more refined. And personally, for the $12-15, it is quite nice. Now, I will say that I think some would prefer the Quarks, the Moondrop Quarks, for a more laid-back response. Although the presentation is very different. So these two might complement each other, the Quark and the CRN, or Quark and the CRA. But overall, it's quite nice. I think it stands well on its own as at least a beater IM, and or even as just something to take out and whatnot. I actually do have a second pair of CRAs just here in a CCA TWS adapter. I seem to have just dropped the other one, but yeah, and you'll see what I mean. In dropping the other one, the faceplate just came off. This is about a 2 or 3 foot drop, and yeah, this thin metal faceplate came off. As you can see, it's just a piece of sheet metal, and it just gets press fit onto here. And there you go. stays on okay, but yeah, watch out for that little faceplate. I think that's the only real concern. Other than that, if you like nice V-shaped response without too much aggressiveness, yeah, this is a good option. I think that's all for today. Yeah, see ya.